What if I told you that being nice is sometimes just fear dressed up in polite words? That every time you say it's okay when it's not, every time you shrink yourself to keep the peace, you're not being kind, you're abandoning yourself, and you're teaching others to do the same. I still remember it like it was yesterday. I was standing barefoot on the cold kitchen floor, phone wedged between my ear and shoulder, my heart pounding so loud I could barely hear my own voice. I decided to make it my mission to make the world a better place. What if I told you that being kind, you're abandoning yourself? I could barely hear my own voice. My hands were trembling, and before I even realized what I was saying, the words slipped out. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to make this awkward. I was apologizing for saying no. For the first time in a long time, I had told someone I loved, someone who always counted on me to be their safety net, that I couldn't step in this time, that I was stretched too thin, that I was barely holding my own pieces together. And the silence on the other end of the line felt like a punishment. That silence echoed all my worst fears, that I was selfish, that I was letting them down, that I wasn't good, wasn't enough. So I did what so many of us do when we're afraid of losing love. I started backpedaling. I tried to soften my boundary, to explain it away, to convince them I wasn't a bad person for needing space. And I'll tell you the truth that hit me later, after I hung up and stood alone in that kitchen, my eyes burning with tears I didn't let fall. That apology wasn't for them. It was for me. For the little girl inside me who had been taught that love is conditional, that being good means being available, that being worthy means putting everyone else first. That moment cracked something open in me, because when we apologize for having boundaries, what we're really saying is, my needs don't deserve respect. My well-being is less important than your comfort. And what's so heartbreaking is that it doesn't start with malice. It starts with fear. Fear of being rejected, abandoned, or seen as too much. And so we wear nice like armor, thinking it will protect us from loss, not realizing that what we're really losing is ourselves. Psychologists call this fawning, the survival response where we please, appease, and over-explain to stay safe. And it works until it doesn't. Until we wake up one day and don't recognize the person in the mirror, because we've spent so long shape-shifting for everyone else. That night in my kitchen, I made myself a quiet promise that I would stop apologizing for honoring my limits, that I would learn slowly, clumsily, bravely, to believe that my boundaries are not a betrayal of love. They are a form of it. Because here's the raw truth. When you abandon yourself to please others, no one wins. Real love doesn't ask you to disappear. There was a birthday dinner once, mine actually. I was surrounded by people who, on paper, loved me. Friends, family, colleagues. The ones who always said things like, I don't know what I'd do without you, or you're my rock. I watched them laugh, clink glasses, tell stories, and I felt invisible, like I was watching my own life from the outside. Because here's the thing no one tells you about being the go-to person. It's lonely. So lonely. I had spent years being the dependable one, the listener, the fixer, the one who showed up at 2 a.m. when someone needed to talk, who rearranged my life to help, who kept everyone else's secrets, who smiled through my own heartbreak so no one would feel guilty. And I was proud of it, at first. Proud that people trusted me, that I was the safe place. But that pride slowly turned into something else. Exhaustion, emptiness, resentment. I didn't want to admit. Because somewhere along the way, I'd taught people to stop asking how I was doing, I made it easy for them to believe I was always fine. I wore nice like a mask, thinking that if I was always giving, I'd always be loved. But that night, sitting at that table, it hit me. I had built a life where everyone leaned on me, but I had no one I could lean on. And that wasn't their fault. I had taught them that I didn't need support, that I was above needing it. Psychology has a name for this: self-abandonment in relationships. We confuse our role, the helper, the caretaker, with our identity. And then we wonder why we feel so unseen. What no one tells you is that being the strong one can become a prison, because the more you play that role, the harder it is to break free. People expect it. You expect it. And asking for help, it starts to feel selfish, weak. But the truth is this: real connection doesn't come from being needed. It comes from being known. That night, after everyone left, I sat in the quiet and made a decision that I wouldn't just be the go-to anymore, that I would start showing up in my relationships as a whole person, not just as a helper, but as someone who also needed holding, who also had limits, who also deserved to be seen. Because being loved for what you do is not the same as being loved for who you are. And you deserve the kind of love that knows the difference. It was a small thing, so small that if you'd been in the room, you might have missed it. I snapped at my partner over leaving a dish in the sink. A single dish. And the second the words left my mouth, sharp, loud, unkind, I felt the sting of shame. I wasn't angry about the dish. I was angry because I felt invisible in all the ways that had built up over the years. Every time I said it's okay when it wasn't. Every time I stayed quiet to keep the peace. Every time I smiled and said, "Whatever you want," when I had an opinion I swallowed down. I had told myself I was being nice, that I was easy to be with, that I was the kind of partner who didn't cause trouble, didn't ask for too much. But deep down, I was simmering with resentment. And it didn't come out in honest conversations. It came out in moments like that, over something as small as a dirty dish. That was the day I finally saw the cost of my so-called niceness. I thought I was building harmony in my relationship, but what I was really building was a wall between us. A wall made of unspoken needs, unmet expectations, and all the little places where I abandoned my truth to keep things nice. Psychologists call this emotional suppression, when we bury our real feelings because we think they're too messy, too inconvenient, or too dangerous to express. But suppressed feelings don't vanish. They wait. And they leak out in ways that hurt the very people we're trying so hard to protect, and hurt us too. And here's the part that no one tells you. When we don't voice our truth, resentment becomes our voice. It speaks for us in sarcasm, in passive aggression, in cold silences, in those little outbursts that seem to come from nowhere. That day, standing in my kitchen, ashamed of how I'd spoken over something so small, I realized that being nice at the expense of my truth wasn't kindness. It was dishonesty. It was fear, and it was slowly poisoning the closeness I longed for. There's no such thing as one-sided kindness. If it costs your peace, your joy, your wholeness, it's not kindness at all. So I started practicing something different. I started saying the hard, uncomfortable things before they turned into resentment. I started trusting that real love can handle my truth, not just my politeness. Because here's what I learned. You can't build connection on a foundation of silence. You have to be brave enough to let yourself be seen, even when what's true isn't easy or nice. Especially then. I can still hear the word echo in my head. difficult. I wasn't even in the room when it was said. A mutual friend told me later, in that hushed conspiratorial tone people use when they're delivering news they think will hurt. She said, "You're getting a little difficult. Since you started speaking up more," and just like that, I felt my stomach drop. Difficult. The word I had spent my whole life trying to avoid. The word I had bent over backwards to escape. You see, I had always prided myself on being easy. Easy to get along with, easy to be around. The one who didn't make waves, didn't cause conflict, didn't ask for too much. I wore nice like a badge of honor. Because I believed that as long as I wasn't difficult, I'd be safe, I'd be loved, I'd belong. But what no one tells you is that when you work that hard to avoid being called difficult, you also avoid being real. That word, difficult, it's like a trap, especially for women, for people pleasers, for anyone who's been told their worth depends on how agreeable they can be. It's a label we fear because we know what comes next. Distance, rejection, people pulling away, and so we edit ourselves. We swallow the hard truths, the messy feelings, the valid needs. Because somewhere deep down, we think, if I stay easy, I'll stay loved. But here's the truth I learned, slowly, painfully. No matter how hard you try to be easy, to be nice, to be undemanding, someone will still find you difficult. You will still be too much for people who benefit from your silence. Psychologists talk about this as self-silencing. The tendency to mute our voices, our needs, our truths, in an attempt to preserve relationships. But what we're really preserving is a version of ourselves that isn't whole, and what we're really sacrificing is intimacy. Because intimacy isn't built on ease, it's built on honesty, on the willingness to show up as we really are. Complicated, messy, sometimes needing, sometimes disagreeing, sometimes saying, no, that doesn't work for me. That day, when I heard that word, difficult, I felt the old fear rise up. But I also felt something else, a flicker of pride, because for the first time, I wasn't twisting myself into shapes that didn't fit me. I wasn't performing nice. I was practicing truth. And here's what I want you to hear. If your truth makes you difficult, then be difficult. Because the people who truly love you, they don't want the easy version of you. They want the real one. There came a moment, a quiet, ordinary moment, that changed everything for me. I was sitting across from someone I deeply loved, someone I had always tried so hard to please. My heart was pounding, my throat felt tight, but I finally said the words I had been too scared to say for so long. I love you, but this isn't okay with me. And in that moment, I was sure the sky would fall, that the relationship would crack in half, that they would look at me differently, see me as selfish or cold or difficult. But the sky didn't fall. The world kept turning, and what I felt wasn't rejection, it was relief. I realized then how long I had confused nice with good, how I believed that being nice, agreeable, flexible, always accommodating, was the same as being loving, but it wasn't. Being nice had kept me small, it had kept me silent, and it had kept me disconnected, not only from the people in my life, but from myself. Nice had taught me to smooth over hard truths, to overextend, to say yes when my body screamed no, to offer smiles when what I needed was to set a boundary. Nice had kept me from having the kinds of relationships I was hungry for, the ones built on honesty, trust, and mutual respect. And then I started to ask myself hard questions. Who benefits when I'm nice at my own expense? What would happen if I chose honesty over harmony? Could I risk being misunderstood in the name of being real? And here's the paradox. The more I let go of nice, the more authentic my connections became. Because when you stop performing for approval, you create space for real intimacy. When you speak your truth, even shakily, you invite others to do the same. Psychologists call this congruence, when your words, actions, and inner world line up. When you no longer wear a mask but let people see the whole of you, your light, your shadow, your strength, your need. And yes, at first, redefining nice felt terrifying, like walking a tightrope without a net. But over time, I learned that what I was really doing wasn't letting go of kindness. It was letting go of the version of kindness that demanded I disappear. Because true kindness, the kind that changes relationships, that heals, that lasts, always starts with being kind to yourself first. When you stop using nice as a shield and start using truth as your guide, you don't lose love. You find out who's capable of loving the real you. That's the courage I wish for you, not the courage to be nice, the courage to be true, to be whole, to let love meet you where you really are, not where you pretend to be. So the next time you feel that familiar urge to say, it's okay when it's not, pause, breathe, and ask yourself, is this kindness or is this fear? The world doesn't need more nice. The world needs you. The real you,